Turn your X files off for like an hour, okay?
They're not. They're not. I closed that tab.
For some reason, I just don't trust you, cool dude.
Well, I'm wearing headphones, so I can't bleed it through.
Turn your X files off for like an hour, okay? So, how are you degenerates doing this week?
I've been testing a lot of engineering sample cards because, yeah, it's about 50-50 whether they are dead or alive, so.
Cause I'm wanted. Sorry.
That was not bad.
So I've been doing pretty awesome. I've been doing hash collisions of MD5, so that's pretty cool. And I'll be getting to teach my one of the my classes as a 17-year-old teaching university students. So that's pretty awesome. I'm hyped for that.
Nice.
I've done nothing good this week. I unburied the Quad FX machine and plugged it into the test bench, and it's about as far as I got.
Hmm.
Been boring.
All right.
Well, I've been doing ELISA assays all week, getting protein concentration values from lavage fluid from the mice I killed the past 2 weeks, and definitely trying to make sense of the data right now. That's primarily what most of the week's been dedicated to since then. Although, as I said earlier, there was a mouse that had a stroke, and I had to get his brains before he completely croaked. So I'll be getting data from that next week. Glorious data. Hopefully it'll paint some kind of interesting story for me to tell. But been doing that, and also my friend she had a bunch of very valuable information on an external drive, and when her laptop auto updated to Windows 10, it completely erased everything apparently. But I'm gonna try to see if I can restore the data on that drive, but I've yet to even start on that, so I need to get on that.
All right. I guess it's my turn now, isn't it? Let's see. I'm stumbling my way through another week of college, as usual. And I have nothing joyful to look forward to at work. My life is just daisies and roses right now.
Mixed with GTA 5 in between.
Yes, that keeps me going, man. So how about that election?
No politics.
Oh, come on.
No. Even though the doc has little Trumps on it, we're not
Yeah, what the fuck is going on with the document?
I haven't looked at it in 5 minutes.
Don't pay attention to the doc.
Oh, yeah, there's little Trumps. China.
Cool dude, please.
Okay, Nugget Ninja.
Wait.
First off, China. Second of all,
There you go.
I got my 3D printer finally this week. I built it. I calibrated it, and I actually managed to print something. And it didn't fail. And I'm proud of that. And it's not made in China. It's actually made in the Czech Republic. So, and then I went to Staples, managed to buy a PCI, not PCIe, but PCI USB expansion card for $1. And then I didn't sleep very much. That's my life.
What'd you print?
Who wrote I'm with her?
A little dragon. I posted a picture of it in the lounge, in the Abyss, in the English channel. I'm trying to get a better picture of it right now. I just need lighting. Yeah. What have they been? What do you do with your life?
So this has been a fairly exciting week for me. So as we all know, Level 1 Techs rose from the ashes of the drama that we were all a part of. And I volunteered to offer to come on to Level 1 Techs potentially shows to discuss from a legal perspective, technology news that involves legal stuff like the Digital Millennial Copyright Act. They accepted my offer. I'm in contact with them currently. So we'll be coordinating as far as, stuff we'll be doing. So that's exciting for me right now.
Trader.
I'll still come on here when I have something. I promise.
I know, I'm just.
Okay, I'll roll the intro here, so everyone be quiet for 15 seconds. Okay, so the first topic is Tracer. You've got AT&T and DirecTV are including in an illegal plot that cut the Dodgers games off the air.
Yeah. So there's a little bit more to it than that. So first off, the Washington Post headline makes it seem a lot more dire than what it was. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized it wasn't quite nearly as bad. Yes, there was collusion, but it's not nearly as bad as the article was making it sound like it was in the title. So when it comes to sports broadcasting, a company owns the rights to broadcast that team usually. And as a result, cable companies have to pay to broadcast those teams if they happen to have a channel. In this case, Time Warner owns the right to the channel that the LA Dodgers baseball is actually broadcast on, and AT&T colluded. Well, their big company, DirecTV, actually colluded with a couple other cable companies, Cox and Charter, in an attempt to drive down the price that they would have to pay to carry this particular sports channel. It was clear that they were doing this. In the actual legal document, like the actual suit that the Department of Justice filed, they actually showed evidence, and I actually read it, where they actually showed, here's this memo between these two companies where the chief executive of DirecTV actually said that the companies may have more leverage if we all stick together. So basically colluding, basically the Department of Justice has them dead to rights. It is clear there was collusion. It is clear that they are likely going to have to pay a fine of some sort. How much remains to be seen. But the reason that this is important is a couple reasons. And the big one right now is the Department of Justice is actually the department, one of the departments that has to approve the merger between Time Warner and AT&T. So this lawsuit could actually be a factor in them approving it or not. So that's a big thing. The other thing, the other reason I bring this up is because I'm not sure of how many of you actually knew that when it comes to sports in general, that there is in fact a licensing fee that is owned usually by one company that the cable companies have to pay to be able to broadcast that. I wasn't sure if everyone was aware of that or not.
I know it's about UFC they have that issue, but I didn't know about sports in general.
A lot of them. It's the licensing issues are crazy. Like I know a few years ago, like the NFL was trying to push through, like if you had more than a certain amount of people watching at like a Super Bowl party, you'd need to buy extra licenses for your just to have that many people there.
Yeah,
it was a public viewing.
Yeah, I heard about that too. That was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a big deal. The reason for that is because of how much money sports has involved with it. The biggest one being football. But the interesting thing happened this year is that football, I know this is a different tangent, but football ratings have actually been plummeting.
Yeah, they have actually, very recently.
Yeah, it's been really interesting just to see that this phenomenon has suddenly started to nosedive. And I'm not really sure what's driving it. I think part of the reason it's being nosedived is because people got tired of all the hype. They still love their teams, but they got tired of the hype, I think. Is what
I think it's also that TV is dying. This is the proof in the pudding here that television, the way it's structured, is so outdated that it's finally catching up eventually.
Yeah. That actually brings up a good point I actually want to make as to why exactly AT&T is so desperate to buy the Time Warner Productions. The big reason is because of the massive catalog that Time Warner has. The other is because Time Warner already has the digital digital distribution set up for HBO Go and their CW and their other stuff. They already have that set up ready to go. They have a massive catalog. So AT&T, I think the reason they want to do this is because they already see the writing on the wall that people are cutting cable. They're switching to, just pick what you want and you just have that as your content from then on. I know there are a lot of people who just have HBO Go and that's it. They're happy with that. I know a lot of people, for me, example, I just have Sling TV and HBO Go and Amazon Prime and Netflix, and I got everything covered as a result. But yeah, writing is on the wall for cable. So any questions about this topic that you want to ask?
Okay, then we can, if no one else has any questions, then we can move on to John with his various science things.
Yes, the science things, as we all know them to be. Last week, I was talking a little bit about CAR T cells, with how CRISPR has already been used in medicine with experimental treatments that have a lot of promise with immunotherapy. And I didn't realize this at first. I was asking a friend he works at the University of Stuttgart, and asking him, because he works in biochemistry, and I asked him if he'd heard about anything CRISPR-wise that had made it to the market. And he's like, oh yeah, there's a company that's coming out that's already public now. They had an IPO offering called CRISPR Therapeutics, and it's a company based out in Switzerland that is already doing research into offering for clients who can get signed up and for potential treatments for certain genetic illnesses and defects. And after having gone through the website, as well as looking through Seeking Alpha, it's an investment website, they talked a little bit more in detail. They were talking about treating sickle cell, also cystic fibrosis. It's involving a correction therapy where they're changing maybe 2 or 3 base pairs. That's it, to cause the correct conformation of the expressed proteins that come from those genetic segments. And the reason why that's such a big deal is because I honestly thought this kind of thing was going to take a lot longer to even start going to the market. And it's not like, this is something that they're offering to just about anybody. No, they're very specific on what diseases they're going to be treating. And right now, the FDA hasn't really, here in America, has not really approved any treatment on genetic engineering or therapeutic use or anything like that. But again, this might be something that Wolf Laban might eventually have something to add about the legality of. But I know this company is based out of Switzerland, and right now they have the approval and investment from several major pharmaceutical companies. So I'm starting to think that this, maybe the company won't succeed for now, but at the very least, a lot of people see it as something that has a market viability already, which is astonishing to me, because usually a technology this experimental and cutting edge, usually investors like to see a little bit more evidence that it's been used and that it's been proven reliable, so that their return on investment's much less likely to have issues. But this just proves even further how this is going to be used in all kinds of methodology for healthcare to try and alleviate chronic illnesses. Because I also mentioned last week with the immunotherapy, that's one of the things this company is offering for, specifically immunotherapy-based CRISPR editing, which I thought was a really awesome thing. They're also doing treatment for hemophilia, Hurler syndrome, severe combined immunodeficiency. But immuno-oncology is definitely something they're doing a lot of work in right now. Unfortunately, all the literature and everything I could see on them doesn't give up the precise mechanisms they're using with this. I'm imagining it's something hidden behind a proprietary wall that they're keeping secret for themselves, but which is understandable. I mean, my lab, we're working with Sigma Aldrich right now, involving several patents for new types of CRISPR kits right now. So, I mean, I understand that there's a little bit of secrecy involved with that. I just wish they would, just the scientist in me wishes they had a little bit more details to how they're choosing to treat each one of these diseases, because the reason being is that using CRISPR editing, depending on the disease you're treating, involves different strategies by which you're going to be delivering the edited cells. So I think this is something that's going to be really interesting in the next 5 to 10 years to see where this goes.
I'm so surprised that this already is coming to the market.
Yeah, me too. I really thought this was something that was going to be 5 or 10 years before anybody really dipped their toes into it from a market-based perspective. But nope, they're definitely offering it to clients now. Although they didn't give any ballpark estimates on what the cost of these treatments were, which is what was really interesting. What I really would have liked to have been able to talk about in any meaningful detail right now. But yeah, I think as time goes on, if they get more clients and if they do well, which is a big if, the Seeking Alpha investors are saying, it holds promise, but it's high risk. So it may not turn out very well. But it'd be nice if they actually did get something going for this, because I think it would be a motivation to governments, organizations like the FDA to say, hey, we have clinical data that's been utilized in the public setting here, and it looks like it's actually very effective. It's not just trials of people who are on their last legs and about to die. It's been used in the market, and it's proven to be successful in limited, and probably very limited numbers, but still, that would be nice if they kind of gave governments a little bit of a kick to try and address this potential therapy, because I think this could really help a lot of people in the next decade or two. Because I think those of us who are familiar with Shrapnel on the Discord, he's had all kinds of issues that he's talked about with us quite extensively, how gene editing treatment would really be helpful for him. All kinds of people who suffer from all kinds of chronic illnesses that have a genetic basis that could really have a lot of suffering taken away, and at a very affordable rate too. That's the best thing, is this would be a one-time treatment option.
So, to what I understand, hemophilia is your blood doesn't clot.
Well,
so
you don't have
as fast.
Yeah, you don't have platelet production is the primary problem, and fibrinogen isn't produced as a result. And this is the result of, I think it's literally only 2 base pairs that are off and a segment of your genetic code that causes your bone marrow to produce platelets. And it's just 2 base pairs that you would have to edit. It's a correction-based therapy where they just write in the proper complementary segment of RNA to make it so that your bone marrow will produce platelets. And they've done this. I know I've seen in the literature that they've done this in cell culture, and it's actually proven very effective. But again, cell culture versus in vivo in a live person, those are 2 very different things. So I'm real curious to see where their therapy options go, both scientifically and legally, where this goes.
I was curious about the hemophilia in particular, because that's something most of my family has. So.
Really?
Well, my mom.
Wait, you're carriers for it, or do you actually have
my mom down? My grandparents, no. My mom, yes. Two out of the 4 kids have been blood tested and came out positive. The other 2 have not been tested yet.
Damn.
So, yeah, my grandparents weren't carriers or anything, though. They were tested.
Wait. When you say that yes for the blood test, you mean they actually have the
Yes,
symptoms?
not
or they're
carriers have it. It is a very
okay.
light form. It's nothing.
Yeah, there are several
life-threatening,
variations of it. Yeah.
but it is there. I was curious because I would be willing to be a test dummy for this.
Okay.
Because science.
You're the second person from our forums that I know who has this issue.
Yeah.
But hey, that just proves my point. There's a market for this. There is a use for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any of you got any other questions about this? Anything you'd like to chat about?
Good talk, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take that as a negative.
Yep. Let's move on to our tech news topic. So I'll start off with Dell has just released photos and teasers of their own version of the Microsoft. Let's see.
Surface Studio, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of it's pretty much in the title. So there's that.
I
Well,
think it's. You can continue.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just think that this has the one good aspect, regardless of how it performs, is that at least this will show that Microsoft isn't going to be alone in producing this type of setup. So hopefully there will be some competition to one-up one another, which works out in our favor at least.
Yeah, I actually think the Surface Studio, it's actually kind of an interesting concept. I think if we see some further development of it, I think it would be a hell of an interesting device. I mean, I don't know who would actually use it, but I think it's cool.
I was thinking that graphical design people would have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I like that idea of that like puck thing. It seems like it'd be an interesting way for, especially like when you're doing editing or something like that, to like quickly, do certain repetitive tasks.
Right.
Wow, this actually looks fabulous.
Yeah, it does look very nice. It just, again, as Krieger says, like who would be using this is a more pertinent question at this point.
Yeah, because the form factor limits what sort of hardware you can have in it. So I feel like at the same time, it's marketed towards professionals. It's a bit like the new MacBook Pros. Right. They're marketing these things towards professionals, but the hardware inside is not capable of professional level work.
So something I actually see a use in, and this is I have a teacher at school, and he has a Surface Pro 3. And the thing that he'll use it for is he'll hook it up to the projector and be able to draw on it and stuff. So he teaches an electronics class, so he can easily just draw out the circuit diagrams. So as a teaching tool, it's actually very useful because, the big smart boards, you actually have to draw on them. But with that, you have the full capability of a computer. You just draw on it. You have the pen. It's actually extremely useful for that.
That is a good idea. I hadn't thought of that, but it's certainly an interesting application.
He uses it almost every day for teaching, let alone everything else. His other thing is he can just bring it anywhere, and it has a lot. It does have a lot of power, and it is a full computer, so you can just kind of hook it up to stuff. He really likes it because it is versatile. I don't think it should be marketed to professionals because of the fact that the hardware is limited, though. I think that is a mistake.
I dabble in drawing on my free time, but I've been trying to get like a display tablet so to draw. But I would want this.
Mm-hmm. Because it's built into the laptop. It's you don't have to have the extra peripheral with it. The only thing is you have to buy the Microsoft Pen.
Yeah.
So, but they're not like the Apple Pen, which was like $100 or something stupid.
just like those earbuds that everybody has to get for like what $150.
Oh my
god! When they come out,
75, I think actually.
Oh, here's a great thing. People in my school when the iPhone 5 to 6, like everybody had the 6. 6 to 7, almost nobody has the 7.
Yep.
Everybody wants their headphones. It's hilarious. Even if it's cool, they want their headphones. Very
It's not
interesting.
cool. It's courageous.
Yeah, exactly.
It's considered cool in my school to have an iPhone 7. I don't have an iPhone 7, so I'm guessing not cool.
No, well, I'm just not an
no.
Apple user in general. I like not having a walled-in garden, but yeah. So I think we can move on to the next little tech bit there, which was about fractal design, or that new case design they came out with. I think it's the Define C or the Mini C.
I think it's the Define Mini C, which really should be the Define Micro C, but okay.
Yeah, it's ATX, but in
Micro
a
ATX.
smaller form factor.
It's micro
I'll be sure to tell
ATX.
marketing what you just told me there, Nugget. I'll make sure they get right
Well,
on that.
think about it. It's a micro ATX case, not a mini ITX case like the Define Nano is. So we have the Define S, which is which is the mid tower. I imagine they're going to have like an Define XL, which is stupid huge. No, fractal. They usually will have one.
Hey, I love my Define XL. Shush.
Hey, I have to say they have a purpose. But yeah, the name's kind of funny, but it does seem to hold up to all the fractal standards and all the build quality. And it's a fractal case.
Well, I was going to say that. Like, here's my question: Is having extra space really that big of a problem? Was this really?
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like people who want a smaller case?
Well, like them saying like, okay, they want to not have wasted space. At least that's one of the themes they were talking about in the PC Gamer article. Because I mean, for a guy like me, like when I'm building a case or putting a system together, I mean, I've only built one system that's mine, but you know, I've got huge fucking hands, big sausage fingers. So like having space to move around really helps me when I'm building a system. And I understand that the argument for like a mini ITX case if you're trying to have something in general that's small, but what was wrong with what we had before with ATX versus mini ITX? Like,
I tend to agree. I see micro ATX as a bit of this like in between. It's not that much smaller than a full tower, like or a mid tower case. Like what is the point of this?
You know what
exactly.
I noticed?
Like what is this for?
I noticed that a lot of really cheap motherboards are micro ATX though. I've noticed that. So I've noticed that every time somebody comes to me, it's like, I need a computer for $400. I'm like, okay. I go to Newegg, and probably what happens is same fractal case because it's really cheap and pretty decent. Probably the same power supply, whatever RAM, micro ATX motherboard. It's just they just happen to be the cheapest. So it has a purpose, but only because of the motherboards, I feel. Like,
but I mean, you could put a micro ATX motherboard in a full size case. I mean, you'd waste a little space, but I mean, like I said, that's not really a huge deal. I mean, I guess it's just for those people who want a little bit smaller case. They have a little.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is targeting a niche OCD market right here. It's like, I just don't see this being a wildly popular marketing option for them.
I honestly didn't even know the regular Define C existed. Like there's Fractal's case, they've got some serious spew when it comes to their cases. Like they have 1 billion cases that are like all very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, the Define C actually with the window, it reminds me a lot of the NZXT S340. It looks almost identical to me.
I find that in newer cases, just period, they took out the freaking hard drive bay cages. They have like 2 mechanical hard drive slots, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I got an S340 because I did a build for my parents did one, and the hard drive cages are like gone. Like there's one cage in the bottom, and you can just screw it right into the bottom of the case. It only has a spot for 1 mechanical hard drive or 2, I believe.
One thing I love about the Define R5 is it has up to 8 hard drive slots, but you can just take them out. Oh, I don't want a hard drive? Yeah, just rip the thing out. Couple screws, done. You know, if you don't want it, whatever. Yep, it's no more than the Define S is. You're not paying more for it. You know, if you use the hard drive space, sure. If you don't, you don't.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't
moving towards the
see
fact
that.
that more and more people are moving more towards SSDs these days as opposed to hard drives. But
A lot of people still have hard drives.
I
feel,
agree.
so-
I don't think we're at the point that we need to get rid of the hard drive base. I'm not saying that. I just think that we don't need as many as we used to have.
Yeah, I'm not saying it have like 8, but maybe 4.
Ah,
You know, I feel 4 just because there's going to be that guy with 4
yeah, that
hard
one
drives.
guy who needs 4,
You know,
like Western Digital is like 4 terabytes apiece locked
Right.
Okay,
up.
I
There's gonna
have
be that.
3. Okay, I have 3 hard drives right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have two.
I have 2 hard drives and an SSD.
I've
Yeah,
got
that's
2.
five.
I have 2 SSDs and a hard drive.
I'm
What
thinking
I-
about putting another one in.
What I
have
did
five
notice about the Defiant C though is the fact that they have 3 SSD mounts instead of the usual 2
Nice.
on the motherboard.
I approve.
That I approve of because
Yeah.
it really doesn't take up much more space. Except the way you have to mount it, you have to take it the entire bracket off to mount anything to it. A little annoying. But
That is
whatever.
annoying.
So
Okay.
cable management.
We should probably move on.
Let's move on to the Zen topics. The first one is there's going to be overclocking Zen. So, gaming.
Yeah, basically, there's rumors going around that there's going to be an overclocking variance for the Zen CPU for Summit Ridge. Basically, I assume this kind of like means if we're comparing it to an Intel processor, like a K processor. That's what I'm assuming.
Black Edition for AMD. So they
Yeah.
call it with the A350s.
So
All
yeah,
the
just basically,
FXs were the.
yeah, just basically aimed towards enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like they talked about in the one article that it's not. I don't really, other than not including a stock cooler, it's not particular and being unlocked. It's not particularly different. I don't know. Like I thought it when they were thinking maybe having. I saw some reference to like that they were going to put like more voltage or allow more voltage or allow higher TDPs or something. I don't even know, but it doesn't. It just seems to be the same thing, just without an unlock multiplier and without a stock cooler.
Really? Because I had heard a lot of great things, especially in comparison to other stock coolers, about the Wraith coolers they had made.
Yeah, the Wraith is a great cooler.
Are they going to be included in the non-overclockable ones?
Yeah.
Okay,
The
that
Wraith
makes
is now
sense.
the standard AMD box cooler. Like when you get an AMD CPU, you get the Wraith cooler.
Because that cooler is I've had one in a system I built. It's actually really pretty nice. I would say it's not worth buying like a Hyper 212 over it. It's really decent. Just don't overclock with it. Like all stock coolers, don't overclock with them. It's loud as hell.
Okay.
But yeah, right now there's just not much really for this news wise.
And then now we can move on to the 8-core performance rumors with Jajone and Krieger.
Oh boy, the rumor mill that doesn't really tell you much of anything. Because my initial concerns about this was, okay, it's a blender score, but they're not specifying if this is even an 8-core, from what I understand.
There was rumors that this was actually the Naples part, which is the supposed rumored 32 core Zen. Which
If that's the case, AMD is fucked 6 ways from
they
Sunday.
are so fucked if that's the case, because people are like, oh, it's as fast as a 10 core. It's like, well, no, it's about the same as like the 8-core Sandy Bridge part.
Right.
So this is an old part from Intel, and I think even if this is the 8-core, I think it's showing that AMD is having some serious problems with clock speeds on these Zen parts, which I think that was the big issue. I mean, why did they downclock that when they tested it to 3 gigahertz?
Why did they keep pushing it back?
Because they can't get it over like 3 gigahertz. I think it's probably going to max out at like a turbo of 3.2. I mean, we're talking a 95 watt 8-core part. Intel's 8-core parts are 140 watts. Like you can't. It's not going to happen.
Right. That's one thing that really. I mean, I hate to say this because I would like to see them come back, but I feel like disappointment's an old friend with AMD these days, and just. I don't know, because if this is an 8-core, like you just said, it's not that big a deal then in terms of providing any meaningful competition to what Intel has down the line now, like already on the market that's just come out this year. It just
The actually, if you look at it, the CPU right above the supposed AMD engineering sample, not entirely sure if that really means anything, but it's a 10-core chip that is clocked at 2.8 to 3.6 gigahertz from Intel. It's Ivy Bridge. So if that is an 8-core, it could be really interesting because it's beating out a 10-core or almost beating out a 10-core. So
This is true, but I mean, Ivy, I mean, the Haswell's, Broadwell, and then we're gonna have Skylake E eventually, fairly soon.
Yeah, I think
Like-
next year Skylake X comes out.
And I mean, we've seen Kaby Lake from Skylake doesn't offer very much in terms of IPC improvement, but we have there's a fair amount of performance improvement from like Sandy to the next like Aswell and stuff. So I'm not quite sure what to think of this.
Well, I'm a little we don't have prices, which I think is extremely important, because if AMD comes out with something that's slightly slower than the X99 platform stuff, but half the price, I think they'll get something. I think the price is what's really, because if they have something that's slower, okay, if it's priced well, the price is going to really determine AMD's success or failure.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that on the desktop market, but I really think this is shown that they're targeting servers, and they're going to go for our part is a little slower, but it might be cheaper and it uses a lot less power. I think that's because in the data center, power matters.
Yes.
So I think
that's exactly what I was about to say with the data centers there, the electric bills, cooling, all that other stuff. It's that would be the main appeal right there. As for enthusiast users on a desktop, I'm not seeing that really. Sorry to cut you off there, Krieger.
that's all right. I was say the same thing.
okay, let's move on to the Kaby Lake showing little to nothing gain over Skylake. So
Surprising absolutely nobody at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about that for about 3 seconds. It doesn't show any improvements other than clock rate. That's pretty much. I mean, Krieger already pretty much said it in the last segment.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
Yeah, from the shift from Skylake to Kaby Lake, we're seeing all improvements point to clock rate. There might possibly be a 1% testable and repeatable increase due to optimization in the die, but that is so far into the margin of error that there's no chance in even really proving it. So yeah, no improvements. Clock rate, yes, and we're looking at clock rates being about 300 megahertz across the board, being faster. So
well, I was going to say that one thing that this is interesting to me about is where Intel is moving away from the tick-tock to tick-tock optimization or whatever they talk about, the 3-step development cycle before they drop to the next processing node. It seems to me that there isn't really much point to the optimization factor here, what they're doing with this, because if it's such a little difference, like so minimal, well within the margin of error testing wise, it just gives me the impression that there isn't, it's just an excuse for them to sell another line of CPUs within the same development cycle, as opposed to giving us anything that's really worth a damn.
I think
yeah, and in response, Intel has to say that, well, we're packing more features in. We may not be increasing the speed, we may not be increasing the IPC, but what we're doing is we're packing more features in. They're saying that the new speed shift technology is going to be more efficient in Kaby Lake, meaning that your clock rates on your C states and your boost states are going to be more, there's going to be less time between switching. So maybe instead of waiting 10 milliseconds for a switch, you're only going to have to wait 2 milliseconds for the clock rate to go from 2.6 on 2 cores to 3.6 on 2 cores, But that's not really, it's not exactly something.
Jaw drops.
Yeah, it's like, was that really an issue in your consumer parts? For the servers, I can see that certainly being something that could be worth advertising, but to the guy who's going to be buying a 7600K for gaming, does he care? No, not really.
Not even in the slightest.
No, but what he does care about is having the newest part. That's what he cares about.
Right. Yeah, that's what they care about.
And it's a great marketing exercise, I think.
Sure. Voltages do look a little lower though, which is kind of cool. I don't
Well,
actually have any experience with Skylake, but we're looking at idle
yeah.
voltages of less than 0.8 volts. So
Well, that's the thing. See, I've done some Skylake overclocking, and these clock speeds, like you can hit like at least on a few 6600Ks that I've played with, you can hit like 4.4 on stock voltage. Like it's no problem, like at all. Like pretty much every
Yeah.
6600K can hit 4.4 on stock voltage, and you can undervolt quite a bit on Skylake as well. So it seems like they just tricked the power delivery a bit, and that's about it. I don't know if it's any significant improvement difference because I mean Skylake was already good chip in terms of overclocking and a lot of that other stuff. So I I don't know what I think they might have just tweaked the voltages and said fuck it, that's good enough. Put better onboard graphics on it.
yeah, and the Chinese company that tested this part, they had a 7600K. Um, besides not seeing any difference in CPU performance other than again clock rate increase, HD 630 over HD 530 integrated graphics, it performed almost exactly the same. Again, less than 1% difference at 8 points, 8 point difference between the i7 6700K with HD 530 and the i5 7600K with HD 630. 8 points out of 1250. Yeah, no.
I
It's
think,
not.
and this speaks to why we need AMD back in the CPU market because it's been like, let's be honest, it's been like this for a while. I mean, this is perhaps the most egregious example, but I mean, Intel really has not been doing much with in terms of CPU performance for mainstream consumers for quite a while.
They
And the
don't have
fact,
to.
yeah, they don't have to. And the fact that we still have dual cores is frankly really terrifying. So AMD, come on, man.
Yeah, I guess the only thing increasing is the price tag.
Yeah. So, bottom line, if you have Skylake, don't bother with Kaby Lake. I mean, maybe if you want a new motherboard, but no, there's no reason. There's no
Right.
reason to bother with Kaby Lake.
I mean, if you're at like if you're on like Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge and you're gonna upgrade, obviously go and buy the most up to date thing. But I mean, if even Haswell people, I would say this is not a worthy upgrade.
Actually, I'm still on 3930K. It's a 6-core CPU, and I don't really see much point in upgrading at this point.
You have none. Maybe next year you'll see an improvement that exceeds 35 to 40%, and it might be worth the upgrade. But for now,
Yeah, that would involve a motherboard change, everything. So yeah, it better be worth it.
yep.
All right, I guess we can move on to the next topic at this point.
Yep. So it's Krieger with the HoloLens for tank drivers.
The
Yes.
one toy he doesn't have yet.
Not yet, not yet. My dad's looking to buy a tank, so maybe we'll have to get this. But yeah, so HoloLens, we've seen it used for all sorts of little interesting things, gaming or for Skyping with people or some productivity applications. But a Ukrainian company called Limpid Armor is adapting HoloLens to be used in armored vehicles. They've essentially attached the HoloLens to a standard, like just basically like a combat helmet. And it becomes a sort of integrated system that allows for 360 degree video outside of an armored vehicle. So the driver or commander especially can just look around and it's like the tank isn't there. It's like he's just floating in a seat essentially. And it gives him perfect 360 degree situal awareness. You can do threat tracking and even just things like just looking like shoot down, like see and shoot like fighter aircraft have in head up displays. But this is much more of an advanced technology. And essentially this will allow them to get, just more situational awareness. You'll be able to seal the vehicle up more because you won't need any more viewing ports or windows or things of that nature. And I think this really could be an interesting application. I don't know if the HoloLens specifically is the best idea for this. I mean, because it's a consumer option, but I think this is a good first step into something that we'll be seeing in the future where a tank commander just puts this on and he can see everything. And that's a huge advantage in a combat vehicle, which your visibility is incredibly limited.
Okay, gonna put the tinfoil hat on since Cool Dude hasn't talked yet. So,
I mean, if you want me to.
Unmanned tanks with just cameras on them. And
Yep,
essentially
that's up there.
HoloLenses.
remote control essentially is what you're saying?
Basically, have remote control tanks.
We'll get
This
there
already
eventually.
You could make them way more compact. You can get rid of you can get rid of controls that are on the tank. You can get rid of the spaces for the men. You can save a lot of space with that.
Yeah.
This already happened. The British tried this with the Challenger. They had a control vehicle. It was an armored vehicle. It was armed itself, had a 30 mil and some anti-tank missiles just for fun. But it was an armored vehicle that the crew sat in and controlled the tank from up to 10 miles away. Radio frequency only.
Yeah,
Now
wouldn't it
imagine
be
doing this
really-
across the globe.
Wouldn't it be
Drone
really
strikes.
easy to like how to scramble the signal with like a emitter?
Yeah, you can have a signal jammer. Yeah, you could
Yes,
totally
that.
do that, and that would make them pretty useless right then and
Just
there.
have one. You have your guy with the backpack with one, and your tank's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you'd have to figure out a way to get around that.
Yeah, that's
Laser
something I see
beam.
as a very practical issue to have to deal with right there. That I just don't see that being anytime soon that they're going to be
Just
utilizing
get
this.
DARPA to develop a new protocol.
No, I think this is more of a laws of physics issue here.
Get DARPA to
See,
develop
when
new
you
laws of
see
physics.
one of these rolling down the street towards your house, just get your EMP out.
Yeah, EMP. I don't think you need to go that hard.
No, I mean,
A short range, couple hundred feet.
you could just like take a rock too and go up to the tank and smash the camera in. Fucked.
I was thinking more low tech
Yeah.
like that as well, but
But I mean, that's actually kind of one of the problems I would foresee. Just something like that. I mean, if they got close enough. I mean, but this is. I think it speaks more to the fact that how worthless, at least in modern combat, armored vehicles are. At least in terms of like large main metal tanks. Like when I was in Afghanistan, there was Abrams around and some other stuff like that, but they were used so limitedly because the terrain, urban areas, a tank just is awful in urban areas and it just gets in the way. And we've seen really modern combat has shifted away from large scale tank battles. The last one was really in 1991 during the Gulf War, and the likelihood of that anything like that ever happening again is dubious. So who knows? But I could see we're going to see certainly more automated things like that and remote control things.
okay. Well,
Okay.
I guess we can move on from there.
So let's see. Now we have Apple cutting dongle prices yet discontinuing all legacy adapters, which is kind of strange.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So Apple, because of course the new MacBook Pros only have USB Type-C and Thunderbolt. They don't, which is it's the same thing. They people have been complaining that the fact that you could buy a new iPhone today and a new MacBook and you couldn't plug the new iPhone into the MacBook without an adapter. So that's pretty funny. So what they've been doing is they have all these dongles because Apple loves dongles. And they've cut all the prices on them considerably. Like the USB-C to traditional USB adapter went from $20 to $9. The Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2 went from $50 to $30. A few of the other ones have dropped in price, but the fact is they're actually discontinuing most of the old products. So there's the standard MagSafe chargers are going to be gone. Some of the older VGA and even HDMI adapters are going to be gone because you're just going to be able to use USB-C to whatever and all this other stuff. And Apple is quoted as saying, "We want to help pros move to the latest technology, and they need to be motivated to do so." So that's why they're doing this. It's absolutely terrible. It's hilarious that they created this situation where that you need to buy all these damn dongles just to use, something like an SD card reader with your laptop.
Quit fongling my dongle.
But I want to grope it.
Oh baby, yeah, it's a mess. The fucking Apple dongle fiasco. I really they have created a problem that did not exist just so they can capitalize the market.
Exactly. I like their justifications too. It's so they can have a slimmer, more sleek design. That was like one of the reasons why they got rid of like the SD card slot and things like that. And I believe it was Johnny Ive actually said he thought that the SD card sticking out of the side of the laptop was unsightly. So now you just have to use a dongle because that's so much better.
Yeah, because that's less unsightly to have this ugly ass cable with a block on the end that has a card that still sticks out of it.
I know, it makes no sense.
Wow, this is
Idiots.
awful. Just I can imagine like somebody at home, they're a MacBook Pro having like 5 dongles sticking out. Oh, look at this beautiful machine.
Look at my beautiful adapters.
It's like those old pictures, you know, from really early internet where people were doing the like DIN 5 to PS2 to Centronics 25 pin to SAS 24, half pitch
Yeah.
SCSI to USB 2.0 to like the massive extended thing of dongles that ends on a flash drive. It's like that all over again, except now it's legitimate and you are expected to pay $25 a piece for these things.
Yeah, and then by next year, most of them won't be even be available. So you better just fucking deal with it.
Ah,
Yeah.
it's gross.
You know who's going to make them?
China.
China.
Speaking of China,
Speaking of China, yes.
Nice.
Of things that are being made and right now only sold in China, as it is apparently supposed to be Trump Day. Cool dude's happy. The Radeon RX 470D. Yeah, not the 470, 470D. It's a cut down 470. Well, even further cut down to the Polaris 10 chip. And it is ever so slightly smaller. So it's kind of a more compact form factor. At least all of the OEMs that are making them a little smaller. Still really high quality. The XFX one, it should come with a full backplate. I think the Data LAN's coming with a full backplate. Sapphire has a Nitro version, again with their standard backplate and dual fan cooler. But they're all just a little bit smaller, little less power usage. The Sapphire Nitro has these really nice chokes on it. It's seriously overbuilt with an 8-pin, so it's still 470. Just has, instead of 2048 stream processors, it comes with 1792. So it's kind of, in a way, the very, very long distant relative of the 7950s core. So it's kind of cool. As far as performance goes, it's pretty much in between. It's not too far off of 470, but it's in between the 1050 Ti and the 470. And honestly, right now, I can see why this is still in China. The American market, we're seeing the 1050 Ti. We talked about this last week. The 1050 Ti is like $50 at most cheaper than a 470, and a 470 is significantly more powerful. So it would be really nonsensical to introduce this into the US market and undercut the 470 by $20 just to compete directly with the 1050 Ti, or $40 to compete with the 1050 Ti. It seems like a strange thing. So it'll stick to China for now. But it looks pretty cool. I mean, it's another card in the lineup at the mid-range, but it's still pretty decent. No word on whether it uses the new 380 micron silicon or not. From the shots of the dies and everything, it looks to be the standard Polaris 10, but who knows? It's cool stuff. More cards. We always like more cards.
More competition.
Yeah, I think it's funny that they're putting so many high end versions of it too, like out like the Sapphire Nitro version and everything of what is ostensibly a budget card. Like it seems kind of like an odd thing to do. Like let's make a budget card more expensive. But I mean, I guess that's why there's 1050 Ti's that are $180. So
yeah, and that actually brings up a good point. I heard from a friend. This is completely not. There's no source for this other than the friend showed me a stream. Buildzoid. Some people know Buildzoid. He set a few world records on hardware bot. He's kind of working his way up. He does some cool PCB breakdowns on cards on YouTube, and he was doing some overclocking on stream this day 5 or 6 hours ago, and he has one of the new 470s, like one of the new run 470, not one of the launch 470s, and he got it to 1580 megahertz.
I think it was a 480.
Really?
Was it a 480?
It might have actually been a 480. I was told it was a 470. I wasn't able to watch the stream. My internet was down. So
There's an article on Reddit. Yeah, he got 1580 on an RX 480 from XFX.
Yeah,
On
it
air.
was a
That's
480.
insane.
No, it was
Yeah.
water. It was water cooled.
Oh, okay.
So he pushed nearly 1600 megahertz, a number that nobody even dreamed of when the cards launched. I remember I overclocked mine on water, and I think I got to like 1420, and it wasn't stable. I know that 1400 was stable, and that was about as good as it got. So 1580 is insane.
I'm trying to see. He also overclocked the memory. I'm trying to figure out where he got it to.
Yeah, my
So
480
these newer, smaller dies. Also, the 470D is clocked significantly more aggressively. It's clocked at the 1266 megahertz, as opposed to I think it's 1200 of the 470. So we're looking at some higher clock rates from these chips at the same efficiency levels, which is
Yep.
nice.
He got the memory to
Nice.
2310 megahertz, and at Firestrike at 1580 2310, you got 14,267.
That's really impressive stuff. That is,
Combine that with HBM. Oh my.
well, we don't know. Maybe
Once.
Vega,
yeah.
maybe.
Vega, well, because that's apparently the rumor that Polaris is going to be replaced by Vega 11 next year. So
Yeah.
Polaris is going to be apparently quite a short-lived architecture.
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself. It wasn't very long lived.
Well,
Well,
you say that, but it's going to continue to be in OEMs for at least the next 3 years, because
Yeah.
that's how AMD does that.
Yeah.
Right, but I was just thinking about when Vega comes out there with the HBM2, that is going to be
Mhm.
replacing it rather soon on the at least some
Well,
portion of the
Vega
market there.
11 probably won't have HBM 2. I don't think so. I mean, not if they're targeting the same market that Polaris is at around that $200 and some price point. I don't think that's going to have HBM 2. I don't think it's even necessary. I mean,
Well,
maybe GDDR5X, but not HBM.
Well, I was going to say that from what I was reading is that they were the 490 at least they were going to be having HBM2 on that was the rumor, but I don't know.
Well,
it is just rumor and conjecture.
There's two Vegas. There's Vega 10 and 11. 10 is the big one that's coming to
okay.
with
some
like
reason,
GP102, and then Vega 11 is a smaller one that's supposed to replace Polaris and like probably has like an RX 580, and it's supposed to be in that same sort of range.
Okay, never mind. I thought a higher number meant higher performance for some reason
No.
there, so had it backwards. My bad.
Yep. So, yeah, 470D. Videocards.com tested the Nitro. They pushed it to 1400, and it pretty much slaughtered the stock 470. So, it's essentially the same card. So that's all we can really say about it. But it might come out on the US market soon, TM. And it might be cheaper than the 470.
What if they got this 470D if they cut it or tweaked it in some way to have it PCIe power only?
That would be very interesting. Because
I would honestly doubt it. Looking at the board, it does have that extra 66 amp FET, but it's not on the back of the board anymore. It's on the front because they shortened the board down. So they moved a little bit. They moved the VRM around a little bit, kind of compacted things down. But it looks like it's pretty much the same kind of power delivery system. It's not bad. It's just more of the same.
High-end, mid-range, high-performance mid-range cards. I like it.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Speaking of performance,
Let's see.
bad segues.
Yep, bad segue. But now Steam store pages are required to use real in-game screenshots instead of rendered ones, which looks like an interesting development. So no more fake screenshots.
No, okay. My friend, he's a Steam developer. He actually has a game that he's going to be launching on Steam within a few weeks. And he gave me this amazing idea of how Bethesda in EA no one will get around this. Have an alt gallery in your game. Pictures in your alt gallery are in your game, so thus they're screenshots. Done. It counts.
That's kind of what Valve sort of did a little bit. So I checked the Dota 2 page like right recently, and they took pictures of their characters in the Dota 2 like screenshot like overlay. But it's still screenshots of the game.
It counts, yeah. All you have to do is have an art gallery in your game, and then you take all the pictures of the screenshots.
I feel like this is more aimed at less like AAA developers, like these big games. I think it's just more an attempt to clean up the swill that is Steam Greenlight and early access. Like, because it's so bad. Like, and the screenshots are oftentimes completely not representative of what the game actually is.
Yeah.
One of the comments at the
Right.
bottom of the article says this screws over Ubisoft.
Keck.
Truth.
You shouldn't buy Ubisoft games ever.
No,
No, never.
should buy EA.
Fuck you. I like Battlefield 1.
Oh God, that's one thing.
Critic.
It was like I heard like maybe I should get it, but I was like, no, my conscience will
I
not
have
allow
it.
me.
It's
to
called
do this.
I have it. It's called Battlefield 4 with a different
I'm-
texture pack.
I'm seeing more
No,
tiny-
it's actually really different. It's better.
That's what they said about
There's-
Hardline.
Oh, Hardline that's different. It's not, whatever. I like Battlefield 1. Shut up.
I just bullied you.
You
Yeah,
did.
on a related note, there's more characters in the game. Let's see, Overwatch. So this Sombra. I'm not a Overwatch person, so anyone else want to take this?
Tracer, take it away.
He left. Take it
Oh,
away.
that's right.
I think
Gaming.
it's you, Krieger.
I think it's gaming actually.
I can take it. Yeah. For disclaimer, I don't actually play Overwatch, but this character might get me into playing it though. New character, Sombra. She's a stealth character and a hacker. She specializes in disruptive attacks. She has a machine pistol, hacking capability, thermoptic, which allows her to increase speed while becoming invisible. Translocator, which is a beacon type thing grenade which you can just chuck and teleport out from that beacon, as well as an EMP. I really like this character. They came out with like 2 new videos, and I might want to play this now.
Okay.
I like how none of us play Overwatch. That's like,
Yeah, I
it's-
don't. I'm not even. I
it's-
don't really
it's
understand the
60
hype
bucks.
behind it. Really.
No.
Yeah,
It's $60 TF2 to me.
Yeah.
$60 for a $20 game.
I know, and
it's-
that's why like Team Fortress 2 is already hilarious enough with the characters that it's got. So I just like, yeah.
And the question always becomes, it's like, now that they're adding more and more characters, how are they going to keep the ship balanced? Like, I really don't think it's going to be a mess.
That's why TF2 only has so many characters.
I know, and they all
And
have
it
their
still has balance issues.
Oh, I was gonna
Oh,
say
God,
it's
the
still
pyro.
it's still the pyro.
And
It
they
still
just
is fun to
they
play,
just
though.
unbalanced him even more. Heavy meta combo.
And
How to win.
I downloaded Paladins, which is like basically just like free Overwatch, and I was like, this is okay. Like, I'd play this. And I played it. Actually, Paladins is fun. You guys should try it out. It's free, so it's like Overwatch but free. And I found that weirdly appetizing.
Okay, Dick Krieger, you have the next topic here.
Yes, I do, and this is a few people. I've seen this around on several news articles, and I really just want to talk about it because every like news article I read about it made me angry inside, because it was just an example of how terrible the mainstream media is and how much they resort to fear mongering to try to sell articles. So this is the new Russian nuclear missile they've just announced it essentially. I like how it's like a product announcement. It's the RS-28 Cermat, and the NATO reporting name is Satan 2, which is the best name ever. I don't care. So apparently it's the next best thing since sliced bread, and it's going to kill all of us, and it can destroy Texas. And I've seen all these articles about it, and it's just really bad because they promote this as, we're all going to die, but I just want to state that this missile is nothing to be afraid of because it's actually totally fucking shit because it's made by the Russians. All right.
Ooh.
What did you just say?
Wait, not shots fired, missiles fired.
Missiles
Yeah.
fired. No,
Nukes-
seriously.
Nukes
Or maybe
fired,
not in the
baby.
case.
This,
Or maybe not in the
literally-
case of Russia.
Literally, this missile, okay, it's not even out yet. They just announced it. It just went through its first motor testing. It won't be in service probably till like 2020 or 2022, right? And it's not even as good as the U.S. missiles that were in service in 1986. Like
On floppy drive.
it's not anywhere even near comparable to like the U.S. Peacekeeper or Minuteman III missile. So the main idea of this missile is it's what's known as a heavy ICBM, which means it has a very high throw weight, which means it can project a payload, a very heavyweight payload, a long distance, or supposedly it can. It's supposed to be able to carry up to 15 multiple independent reentry vehicles and with a throw weight of 100 tons, which is the total amount of weight of payload it can carry. The problem with this is at that payload, this missile has a range of less than 8,000 kilometers. It couldn't even reach the United States with its full payload. All right. And it's extremely slow because it's so heavy, making it incredibly easy to shoot down because it has an incredibly long flight time. So it's really nothing to be afraid of. And I'm just mad that the media has presented it like we're all going to die.
Good old-fashioned McCarthyism.
Yep.
No, I was going to ask you, Krieger, is that from what I had heard from this was MSNBC, but it was on the tube the other day, and they were talking how it has a staggered approach, like it doesn't move in a straight line towards its destination or something meant to counteract ICBM missile defense systems. Is there like no validity to that whatsoever, or is it?
That's such a dubious claim for several reasons. Firstly, the only information comes from the Russian government, which I would not trust at all.
Right.
And
propaganda.
In any way you could spin it that ballistic missiles have some movement in how they disperse their warheads, that they come in and can gyrate, or they could do certain things. Really, I mean, once a missile's in the air, it's very difficult to shoot it down. And this would be that system that they're talking about is only once the warheads are released, not the actual missile going up, which is when the missile is most vulnerable. And this one's particularly vulnerable because it's so slow in that stage. So I really don't see that as a problem. And as I've seen, the payload is so, with the max payload, it has such a limited range. I don't see it as being particularly a threat.
It says the warhead will weigh 100 tons.
No, the warhead doesn't weigh 100 tons. The warhead it can have a combined weight of 100 tons. So it'll have
That's so much.
Yeah, most US missiles are much lighter. They're around like 60 to 70 tons. And that's because you can have a much flatter trajectory that way, and you have lower flight time, which makes them less likely to be shot down. It also makes them more accurate.
But
yeah, this really is designed probably to be used with conventional warheads because it's the only way I could see them getting around some of these limits, because the Russians have serious problems with miniaturizing their nuclear weapons. They've always had that problem. They can't make them as small as people in the US, as the US can. So they just try to go with these very large systems, and they seem very imposing on paper, but because Russia has this, they're militarily very weak. So they do a lot of this saber rattling, but it's really nothing to worry about.
And you have the next topic as well, Dick Krieger.
Why am I talking so much in a row? I don't like this. This is basically just another quick little thing. A Tesla crashed a few days ago into a tree in a residential neighborhood, caught fire, exploded, and killed 2 people. Now, the 2 people were driving it. It's not known yet if they died as a result of the impact or if they were trapped inside burning to death. Either way, not really great for Tesla. Because the fire department did reiterate that they had very serious problems putting out the fire because of the nature of electric vehicles, batteries, things like that. And then, of course, Tesla said that they were very sorry, but of course, if they were using autopilot, this wouldn't have happened, which that seems to us what they say every time a Tesla crashes. But I believe this is the first time anyone's ever been killed in a Tesla accident.
Well, here's the thing, though, because for those of us who know anything about electrochemistry, is that once the interior sections of the battery are exposed to oxygen, well, guess what? It's going to react. And so this has been known since the beginning of electric car development, really, that, yeah, it's a potential threat. But I mean, you really think this is that much more dangerous than a car engine, which can ignite. I mean, that thing has controlled explosions used to make pistons move up and down. I mean, I really don't think that this one situation here is really indicative of electric vehicles being any more or less safe than a conventional internal combustion based engine propulsion system. So the autopsies will let us know, I think, hopefully, assuming that the bodies are intact enough, what they died of. But either way, if this is the first fatality that they've had, I mean, that's actually really good safety record based on how many they've sold so far. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think Teslas are really worth that much in terms of their practicality at this point. Personally, I'm not a big fan, but this accident I don't think is really that big a deal for Tesla outside of what the media makes it out to be. Because
yeah, that's what I tend to agree with that. I mean, the explosion rates of gasoline and diesel powered vehicles and accidents, I mean, it's actually relatively rare that vehicles burn when they crash. Right. But I will say it's not really necessarily a matter of Teslas being unsafe, because I think they're quite safe vehicles. But it's the public perception of what this seems, and also a training element that fire departments and rescue crews now need to be. They really need to start working on what happens when we uncover hybrid and electric vehicles, because this is going to becoming. It requires different tactics for fighting these fires or rescuing individuals trapped in them. So we really need to see that change in training as electric vehicles become more popular.
Yeah, they need to use reduction agents instead of just water to throw on it. It's like, yeah, the water's not going to help.
I do find it interesting, though, that every time there is an accident with a Tesla, even if it's with the autopilot, they say that, oh, it's not the fault of, if either the autopilot would have saved them or it wasn't autopilot's fault. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Tesla or Elon Musk in any way. And I had personal experience with someone who owns a Tesla, and they are very unhappy with their vehicle as well. So,
well, yeah,
I don't know.
I think it depends on the individual with quality control, because I mean, I know two people who have one and they've had nothing but a wonderful experience with it. Because I know you talked with me about this a few months back, Krieger, about specifically the doors not opening.
The doors don't open. Yeah, that's a great thing.
That's like, I can't get in my car or get out of it. Like, what the fuck?
It overheats a lot. It overheated a lot if you drove it extensively on hot days, and that was the best. Literally, it was the most Apple-esque thing I've ever heard. The customer that I know that owns one of these he called up Tesla and they told him he was, quote, driving it wrong. And I was like, oh my God, how does one drive a vehicle wrong?
I mean, aside from wrecking it, yeah.
I mean, but
I guess.
It was a lot of problems with it.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know what model your friend has, but
he has a Model S, the P70D.
Yeah,
the top end one.
Right, because the two people I know have the P90D
or the 90D. That's what it is. It's the top end one, whatever that is.
Well, and they have a P100D now, but
it's not that one. Yeah.
Yeah, but the P90D is the two vehicles that the two people I know, and I mean, I've driven it actually, and it's a lot of fun to drive. Like the lack of gear shifting and like the constant rate of acceleration is awesome. But they've had nothing but great times with these vehicles, and I think it really comes down to quality control at this point, because
very true. I do agree.
Because the economies of scale, as well in manufacturing, this is something you learn in chemistry with, like because Coca-Cola is one of the endowment producers for the university I work for. They talk about 6 Sigma being for how the rate at which a product comes off an assembly line or an assembly-based process that is defective in any way. You're aiming for a very, very, very low percentage rate so that you don't have too many legal issues down the line. And, at this point, I think that Tesla has actually a relatively pretty good track record with safety at this point. It's just that in terms of not safety so much as utility is more the problem at this point, especially since the lack of charging stations throughout the nation at this point, because we have gas stations everywhere. I think that severely limits where people can go, although they are building more, but still, I just
And in terms of reliability too, Consumer Reports, which of course is the sort of definitive guide for this sort of thing. Actually, they rate all Tesla Model S's as below average in terms of reliability, which I tend to agree with.
Right. What I find interesting is, in my entire lifetime, I've only ever seen one electric charging port, not including somebody's house.
Oh, like the
The
Tesla
one.
stations?
Well, there's
no,
3 here
any-
in Atlanta, but
Any electric charging port of any type for
Yeah.
any car.
And I
There's a
don't
bunch of
see.
Tesla stations in Michigan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they're
see
all
some.
up and down I-5. You see them at a lot of the larger cities from Seattle down to Portland, especially in
You're in
Portland. there's a
Seattle.
number
It's
of 'em.
just supposed to be everywhere.
well,
I
I,
live-
would- I was going to say here in Atlanta, we've got them pretty frequently throughout the metro Atlanta area, and also down I-75 down into Florida. Like you can definitely get around on the major highways. It's just for me, I'm like, okay, well, what if you have friends who live up in the mountains or out in the more rural areas and things like that? And you got to go off road and what have you.
Or
It's
even
just
if you're
like-
just taking a long trip, like charging
Yeah.
still takes a long time. Like that's
Yeah.
just a fact.
yeah,
Filling
that's
up
my
gas
point
takes
is that
however
until they
long.
4
no
minutes.
like
Yeah.
I was going to say that, like, relatively speaking, you're right that like it's an inconvenience at this point. And until they develop supercapacitors based off of graphene for like really rapid charging time, which in a few prototypes that a few universities have pumped out that actually do work, just manufacturing them and making them reliable, I think is the main issue at this point. But until that happens, along with many more charging stations being constructed, there's not really a lot of appeal right now, I think, practicality wise, to get an electric vehicle at this point.
Yeah, and I would just want to say too that the idea, because I know if someone's watching, they're going to be like, "But what about the thing where you swap the batteries and it takes less time to fill up?" It's like, no, that's not.
That's not how this
That's not
works.
going to happen because in the future, supposedly when we all have electric vehicles, the batteries aren't going to be generic. They can't be generic. Like that's not possible. Like in terms of design, like each one is going to have its own battery, and then so what? You're going to have a proprietary. You have to go to a Tesla station to swap your battery at the Tesla station. And what if you have a BMW electric car? I mean, it's just that's a really roundabout solution. That's not.
It'd be like
Well,
cell phone
that's the
chargers in
that's
the
the
90s.
equivalent of getting a new engine at that point.
Yeah, it's like it seems it's a bad idea.
So, my idea, coming back to the beginning of the actual article, is what is protecting the battery from getting damaged in a Tesla?
Metal.
Well, yeah, they have a
Like,
metal casing.
Is it a lot? Is it a little? Because really,
Thick metal.
No, it's like 1/4-inch sheet steel on the
Literally
bottom.
the floor of the car.
It's surrounded. It's in the frame. Like it's surrounded essentially. It's
'Cause
still
I-
well protected.
Because if it's like an 1/8 of inch sheet of aluminum, yeah,
Which it isn't.
which it isn't. That's a big difference than
Yeah,
than
it's a steel
solid
car.
sheets.
No, they're making sure that the batteries don't get ruptured by something you drive over or whatever. That's
Yeah, I didn't know. I've never had one, but I have noticed in the Teslas, the people, and this is just a thing for electric cars. People who say they're great for the environment, I think.
Oh,
need
that's
to
bullshit on
really-
top of
That's
nonsense.
a whole other topic by
I
itself.
think need to really think about what they're saying, and let alone keeping out the manufacturing costs. Let's ignore that.
Lithium mining.
Ignore manufacturing cost. Period. Charging the damn thing. Around where I live, it's either coal or fossil fuel power.
Yeah, I like how they're like my electric car doesn't use any fossil fuels.
So
really,
I'm
where does that power come from?
Where did the electricity come from, genius? Yeah,
Electric
exactly.
works. They made it.
It's like unless you got solar panels on your roof around here,
Or
You're
if
bur-
you got
you're burning
nuclear
coal.
power.
Yeah.
no, there's no nuclear power plants in Central Jersey.
Yeah,
Only in
so-
north,
but-
and there's
but-
only one, to what I know.
That's why I think actually you see a lot of like Toyota really recently and BMW and others like electric cars. I think are going to be a relatively small market. I think for a while, I think we're going to start seeing hydrogen fuel cell is really going to be what takes on. Yeah, I honestly just like hear me out because you have we got hydrogen. You can make hydrogen relatively easily, or we can just extract it from different places. To fill up, it's not really that hard. It's instant, and I think it's a fairly good option that a lot of companies have really started to explore.
Well, there's several problems with that, though, Krieger. It's not just the volatility of hydrogen or the highly reactive nature of it on Earth. Because, never had any problems before with mankind and hydrogen blowing shit up.
No,
Not at all. Because
No.
hydrogen, when it blows, most of the energy is not released in a thermal version like with fire or whatever. It's sheer concussive force that it emits, more so than the thermal emission. And so you get a rupture on that thing, that is a very powerful explosive that's going to go off. It's going to tear your car to shreds. And on top of that, isolating hydrogen gas, that's an energy intensive process. And I mean, I'm not saying that, let's say isolating gasoline or based fuels from crude oil doesn't involve energy and effort. Obviously it does for refinement purposes and what have you. But I just have a very hard time seeing the safety of that being something that you could really sell people on, because it's a lot more hazardous than using octane based fuel.
Well, the thing I would think though is if you have relatively small quantities of hydrogen and you have it in something like a tank, that a hydrogen tank is going to be, for most period, it's not going to be damaged in an accident. I don't see that. Like, I mean, the tanks, if you look at the tanks that are in something like the new Toyota, whatever it is, I forget what it is, or like the Honda Clarity, they're both extremely small and they're made of carbon fiber and steel. They're essentially almost indestructible. They've done so much testing with these. I think the safety aspect could be gotten around with proper engineering. Whether or not you could sell people on that is
right. It's not that. Well, I mean, for engineering purposes, let's say that you have a breach of some kind, of any type, right there. You wouldn't realize you even had a breach until it's too late, because hydrogen gas doesn't give off any scent. It's not like gasoline where you smell a leak or you like see something dripping or whatever. It's clear, it's colorless. You cannot see it when it emits either. So if you had a problem like a leak or something of that nature, you would have no clue you even had a problem in the first place. And that's my worry about with mechanics dealing with it as well.
That is true.
Light a match to go take a smoke.
No.
My Vietnamese mechanic, he does love to smoke, which I find hilarious.
People just do. So it's like you're sitting in your car, you have a nice have your windows closed, and you have
I've got grease all
leak
over my
that's going
forearms.
into your
and
cab.
I mean, you could say it's a lot lighter than air, so if it ever
Or
leaked,
smoke.
it just goes straight.
Well, the volatility aspects of it means that it's going to escape pretty rapidly.
Yes.
Yeah, if it dispersed before it, like in a proper concentration, where it would, if it got out of there into a big enough area fast enough, it might. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I really have no idea about that. I do know that there's quite a few hydrogen fueling stations in California already. So
Because California.
Yeah,
and it's actually slightly cheaper than gasoline there, which is interesting. So
I feel we need to find something. It's like, I feel like there's a big problem with anything that we try to use as a fuel source. There's always something that's really big issue. Electricity, I have a big problem with it because everything's always drive-by-wire, and that's something I won't deal with. I'll avoid buying a car that's drive-by-wire my entire life if I can.
Speaking of avoiding things, Dirty Cow.
Yay! Now we can move on.
Segway.
Oh man,
Okay.
this bug has been around for a very, very, very long time. When Linus Torvalds says, like, I have no really other way to implement this really, but I'll deal with this later. Deals with it, 9 years later? 7 years later, I think? Yeah. I mean, the bug itself is kind of all right, I guess. Basically, it's Dirty Cow is copy on write bug that when a race condition occurs, when two or more threads or processors have the same resource and are trying to access the same resource, they step on each other. This causes some problems where one wants to write to one, but they're waiting because that wants to write to the other, and it just causes this whole problem. And this bug, the exploit exploits the bug, which causes it elevates itself and causes the bug or the exploit to write onto something as root. So it's a local elevation exploit. So use cases, let's see here. Me and my friend were testing this on an Android device where we were able to write to a root-only directory on a non-root phone from a computer, just writing a simple file. This is so simple. It was easy, completing like less than 10 seconds. less than 2 seconds. Another exploit, which is works for root access. Say I send you a PDF which contains this bug, or something like that of the sort, activates the bug. I can rewrite your password file, changing your root password, allowing me to gain root access. So yeah, that's Dirty Cow. Just a local elevation bug.
It also is responsible for. Is it the one that was used for all the internet attacks?
No, but I believe they're working on like making this adapt to it.
Interesting.
The internet bugs come from a script that was released on GitHub like less than a month ago.
And Nugget Ninja, you're up with your topic here.
My clickbait.
Someone else died.
Yes, I have some beautiful clickbait from the UK. Let's just read the quick bait. Teenage boy killed in 3D printer explosion during school art project. That doesn't sound like clickbait. If you actually would read the article, it turns out the 3D printer didn't explode. It turns out aerosol is flammable, and so is flash paper. Who would have known? So basically, this kid, he has a 3D printer. It appears to be in a building that his parents own for a small business. And he has a bunch of flash paper and tried to use 3 cans of aerosol to make his project, of hairspray, to make his project spin attached to the print bed. Now, using hairspray to make your project attached to the heat bed does work. You don't need 3 cans, though. You need the 1 spritz. 1 spritz
3 cans is a little much.
1 spritz does a beautiful job. It really does. So, and then the Telegraph, thank you UK, blew it out of proportion. So the 3D printer technically could have been the one responsible for the explosion, because with all that aerosol in the air and the flash paper, maybe if the 3D printer arced a tiny bit and just in the right way, that could have been the issue of the explosion. It could have been a spark from anything else in the room. It could have been him turning on a light switch and creating a tiny arc in the light switch. It could have been him plugging something in, creating a tiny arc in the outlet. It could have been a lot of things. But I find it interesting that the media instantly goes, it's the 3D printer that blew him up. Because it reminds me of 3D printers can print guns, which doesn't make any sense. They can't.
Should have just used tape.
So, you know what? Spray paint. I mean, hairspray does work really well. I've noticed. I tried cleaning it with alcohol and then spraying it with this, and then I tried using a tiny bit of glue, and that didn't even work. But then 1 spritz of hairspray. My prints started coming out great, actually.
I needed to try this when I get mine.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. It's like I was trying all these different things, and then I watched the Barnacle made a video responding to this, and I mentioned hairspray and how that's a good idea. And I'm like, I'll try a tiny bit, and it works. So, and then the police say using aerosols is something they don't suggest as aerosol or hairspray as something to make things stick to 3D printer, which comes back to everything in moderation. You can spray aerosol on 3D printer and it will be fine. And if it arcs a tiny bit, then you have a tiny fire and it will burn pretty quick. Aerosol burns fast. And that'll be that. Turns out when you spray unload 3 cans into the air, you have a lot of stuff in the air. You have flash paper, which burns extremely well. And the explosion didn't kill him, also, which I find interesting. So literally there's no true part about this article headline. He actually is killed by the fire, not the explosion.
Man, that sucks.
He survived, which, in all honesty, I would have preferred to die in the explosion. It would be much quicker and less painful. He basically burned to death. But there's nothing true about this article headline. And it's just, 3D, it was like a cheap $300 3D printer. So I could see it arcing a little bit if not built perfectly. And, that could have been the spark. Then again, if you turn on a light switch, it can spark. So, he shouldn't have sprayed that much. It is a shame that he died, but it's what the media has done. It's back to the media blowing everything out of proportion, just like the missile. It's not what they think it is.
The Russians are going to put 3D printers on missiles and shoot them at the US and kill us all.
Beautiful. I expected that from Cool Dude, though. That's kind of tinfoil. But
Wait,
yeah,
what? I was looking at something that involved tinfoil. What did you mention?
Derek Krager said the Russians are going to put 3D printers on ICBMs. Blow us all up.
Yes, we need flame-throwing missiles.
No, they're going to blow us up because 3D printers explode,
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Mine's exploded about 10 times by now.
Think about it. If they put like 3D printers on that payload would be a lot weight less.
Wait, I have a great idea. Put 3D printers on a missile and have the 3D printers be 3D printing guns in the air.
I just figured out the name for the stream.
Boom.
And shoot them at Teslas.
Boom.
3D printed
Yeah,
missiles.
fire Tesla's out as a side channel. Yeah.
What was the name?
3D printed missiles make Teslas explode.
Yes.
Did somebody say clickbait?
Clickbait. Yes. We can trick 10 more people into watching us.
Yeah.
We can get that Alex
No,
Jones
this
demographic.
hairspray-powered Teslas.
Oh, you're right, Krieger. We need to aim for the Alex Jones market right now.
Russian hairspray powering American cars?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Russian hairspray missiles launch Teslas from 3D printers.
Dude, Nugget, you need to work for BuzzFeed. You'd be perfect. You'd fit right in there.
That's a Donald Trump quote right there.
They would
Boy.
hire women.
China. Oh, I got it. Even better.
China.
Russian. What did I say before? I said like Russian 3D missiles print, but then it has to be from China.
From China.
Clickbait. Right there. Golden.
They're powered by
Perfection, that
those 470Ds.
Oh, yeah.
You have to tie everything together.
Somehow the GPUs compute the actual trajectory there.
It's an
They're
AMD.
AMD. They're the rocket thrusters.
Beat me to it.
Okay, I think that's a good wrapping up point here. So,
Yeah, plenty of nonsense towards the end. I like it.
and we're stopping.